A very special guest joining us on the show today, Alex Bayer, special teams coordinator for Bowling Green. But before that, he was the tight end coach, coaching Harold Fannin Jr. Who are the Browns getting in their new tight end? We'll pick his brain coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Browns fans? It's Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. And yes, as I mentioned, very excited to have a guest on the show this week as we continue talking about the Browns draft and everybody that they came away with this last weekend. And frankly, we've spent so much time for obvious reasons talking about the quarterback conversation and Shedeur Sanders and what he brings to the table. But this is an opportunity to talk about another player who's joining the fold in Harold Fannin Jr., who spent his last 3 years at Bowling Green and really lit it up against some of the best teams in college football. And Alex Bayer, who was his position coach, still on staff as a special teams coordinator, but was the tight ends coach at Bowling Green, is here to join us. And Alex, can't thank you enough for the time, man. Really excited about this conversation. Thank you for stopping on by.
Thank you for having me. Always excited to talk about Harold and Bowling Green.
So first off, I guess I want to get a sense of, because I know you came on staff, I believe, in 2022, and how involved were you in the recruiting of Harold Fannin out of high school, first and foremost?
A little bit. So Harold fell to us late. He was a late qualifier. He struggled during the COVID year, like a lot of kids did academically, and kind of got behind and had to do some catching up the following year. And so he kind of fell in our lap. And we got him late. Coach Hall over at Camp McKinley reached out and said, "Hey, I think I got a guy that could play for you." And he was not a tight end in high school. Yeah. He was more of a defensive player than anything. He played a little bit wide receiver, and we watched him as a staff and really had kind of a fight over where he was going to play. Is he going to play offense? Is he going to play defense? And luckily, the head guy was an offensive guy, and an offense that's designed around a flexible hybrid tight end, and that's what he envisioned Harold playing, and we were able to make it happen. What
was it about watching him? Because you mentioned him being a defensive back and in high school. What was it about watching him play that stood out to you as like, okay, this guy could be a tight end for us? Like, what were the things that you just kind of noticed as you watched this tape that were like, we think he could play this position for us at the next level?
Yeah, well, his first 4 or 5 clips were all interceptions, like acrobatic, athletic interceptions. So he's like, okay, he can catch the ball. That's no problem. But he was just, he's just a fluid runner. He can change direction well. He's physical. So we figured, in the blocking game, run game, like he'd be able to learn that and figure out what to do there. So it was a no-brainer across the whole room that, he's going to come here. We'll figure out what exactly he's going to do. We're hoping it's tight end. If not, he can play a bunch of other positions.
And then what were the conversations like with Harold as you were sort of recruiting him about like, hey, we want you to change positions entirely? Like you said, he played a little bit of receiver, but this was even different because as a tight end, you're doing a little bit more, right? You're blocking a lot more. There's different stuff that you're sort of responsible for. So what were those conversations like with him, and how did he sort of embrace it and welcome that?
Yeah, well, we laid out a plan for him, kind of envision what this position is, and guys in the past who have played it. You got Quentin Morris, who had just graduated, who's with the Buffalo Bills now. We had Christian Sims, who was there when Harold got here, and I think in the 6 years Bowling Green that Coach Leffer was here, 5 of those 6 years he had first team all conference tight ends, and the other year was a second team or something. So it was pretty easy to sell, like, hey, you're gonna make plays, you're gonna be utilizing this offense and get some accolades for it.
So his first year, he plays in 12 games, and he only has like 19 catches, a little over 200 yards, and he had the 1 touchdown. That second year, he comes back, and he produced a little bit more, the 44 receptions, 623 yards, 6 touchdowns. What was the moment for you when you sort of felt like, okay, this kid's going to be like special, like NFL level special, could be a draft pick, all those different things? Because we know what happened this past year where he just exploded the way he did and did it on some incredible stages. But what was the moment for you where you felt like that was coming to fruition?
I think we knew all along. I mean, we had that conversation with him, and this is, and a player, that shouldn't be playing at Bowling Green, put it nicely. Like he has that ability. He could have played anywhere in the country and had been just as successful, but we knew early on. So his first year here, I was just the special teams coordinator. I was not the tight end coach. Greg Nosal was the tight end coach. And he tells this story all the time that it was the very first day we had Harold, and it was, hey, Harold, let's just get in a 3-point stance. Let's go step right and hit this bag here. Let's just see what we're working with. And he says he got down in a perfect stance. He had perfect footwork. He had perfect body position, hand placement, everything was a perfect rep. It was his very first time ever getting in a 3-point stance. And he was like, whoa, okay, this kid's going to be pretty good. Normally you got to teach those just little fundamentals with a kid, but no, I mean, and that's Harold's best attribute I can give to Harold is that he's just a sponge. You tell him one thing, boom, he's got it. It's locked in his mind. Like you do not need to tell this kid twice what to do, where to align, what route to run, whatever. So it's just everything's so natural to him. He's smart, and he just got better and better every year.
What is he like? And this is a great place to sort of segue as you talk about him just improving and being a sponge and all those different things. Working with him so closely as you did, what is he like in the film room? What is he like on the practice field just to be around? Like, how does he kind of handle those things? How does he handle criticisms? How does he handle coaching? And what does he kind of bring to the table in that way that Browns fans should know?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's a pro. And that was our biggest sell a year ago to Harold was, again, every team was tampering and trying to get Harold to come to their school last year, rightfully so. And, I think the biggest reason that he stayed is he's a loyal guy. He's had great relationships with us as teammates, knowing that he'd obviously be the focal point of our offense. But our big sell is like, we want one more year to really turn you into a pro. Let's be able to talk football, talk coverages, alignments, all this different stuff. So we worked really hard in the off season, trying to, just make it natural for him. Hey, instead of where was this defensive end line? Well, he was aligned inside. Well, was he in a 7? Was he in a 6? 5? Whatever technique. And that was kind of our project with him. And he did a lot of good things. He got better with his knowledge of the game. And in the meeting room, he's attentive. He's knowledge. He takes notes. And then practice-wise, so I talked about him being a sponge of information. The two things I told all the scouts that came in here, all right, that you tell him one thing, he's got it. And number two is he will practice his butt off in practice. Like every day at the end of practice, he is exhausted because everything is a full speed rep for him. I mean, everything to the indie drills, to the routes on air, to obviously practice. And for a guy that, because he was our focal point and every route was designed to him, like he had to take a lot of reps in practice. And it's really easy for him to be like, man, just give me a couple of plays off. Like I'll do it in the game. I'll be fine. But it was, he was out there doing it. And, there'd be times in the meeting rooms, he'd kind of look at me and be like, what am I running this week? Like that's what I'm doing, because he was running receivers routes. He was in different splits. He's in the backfield. We lined him up at quarterback this year and it kind of became a running joke throughout the season. And even like in just thinking of memories now, like it was really hard to give him minus in place. He was so good. And so I was kind of nitpicking sometimes because I can't get this kid 100% great. Like something had to be wrong. So I kind of became a running joke and he'd kind of look at me and argue it. But, he's a great kid. He's quiet. It takes him a little bit to open up and everything. But if you ask his teammates, like he's the funniest kid on the team and he goofs around. It's just, it takes a little bit to warm up and going to be happier for him to go to Cleveland, close to home. I think that'll be really important for him to have some people right down the road if he ever needs someone to rely on or lean on and, go and help you guys out.
Yeah, I think this is all music to Browns fans' ears, everything you're sort of saying about his work ethic. And you're right, like he was such a focal part of what you guys were doing last year. For him to embrace that and run with it and not ask for plays off and things like that speaks a lot about him from a character standpoint. I want to continue this conversation with Alex. We do need to pause momentarily, but I want to get into what else he can bring to the next level. His ability to block, some things that were said about him during the pre-draft process with that, and maybe even what some of his now Browns teammates can help him with. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, as easy as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all available to you on Fire TV. Do you ever find yourself flipping between apps, trying to find the right place that works for you to watch your TV? With Fire TV Stick 4K, everything's in one place, from Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, beyond. I can tell you, we are an Amazon TV Stick family. We have one on every device in our household, and it gets streaming done for us. It covers everything that we want to watch. We can go right there into the app. And now that I know that I can turn it into an Xbox, I may just take them up on that. Head to Amazon.com, Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. This episode is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work and taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, we equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com. Back at it here with Alex Bayer, who's the special teams coordinator over at Bowling Green, but worked very closely as the tight ends coach with Harold Fannin Jr., one of the Browns' new weapons that they got in the NFL draft last weekend. So I mentioned it before we paused here momentarily, Alex, but the blocking is something that I think has been brought up throughout the pre-draft process as something that Harold maybe needs to improve on. Now, as I've talked about him as a prospect, one of the things I brought up was he's 20. Like, he's so young still, and I think that's part of what the Browns loved about him is that he has this. He's going to have such an ability to grow and learn and develop in the next couple of years, and so I think they like that about him. But what can you say about him as a blocker that you have seen? I know he was asked to do a lot from a pass catching standpoint for you guys, but what does he bring to the table as a blocker, and is that an area you think he has some room to grow?
Yeah, so going back to your first point with him being 20 years old, I mean, it's kind of like we talked about earlier. Like, this was his third year playing tight end. Like, he is, he's only played the position for 3 years, and you see after 3 years the production and success that he's had. So, I think he's just going to continue to grow and get better and get developed and be able to really turn into one of the best tight ends in the league. But, I mean, I know that's one of the biggest areas of talk was his blocking. Obviously, he can run any route, he can catch any pass, and that's thrown to him. But blocking was his biggest concern. And what I'd say to that, like, he was our best blocking tight end here, and we're a heavy 12 personnel team. 90% of the time we're going to have two tight ends on the field, and we recruit them differently. We recruit that kind of inline blocking tight end. You recruit that Harold position, that kind of flex hybrid tight end, and Harold was the best one at all 9 we had on the roster, and we put him at the point of attack quite a bit. Harold gets knocked because he's not your traditional 6'5", 6'6", 250, 55-pound tight end. He's 6'3", he's 240 pounds. He's undersized, there's no question, but he can hold his own. And the play I love the most, the two plays I love most from this past season were the first 2 plays at Penn State. When the first play of the game, he catches a seam ball down the middle for 35, 40 yards, and he gets up, he's celebrating. And the next play, he drives up Dual Carter 5 yards off the ball and blocking him one-on-one. So, and that was kind of the focal point. Like, hey, find number 11, first chance you get, let's take a shot and go block him. And that's what he did. And he's not afraid. He's as physical. Again, he is a little light, and teams Like, again, not stupid here. Like, you're not going to put him with his hand in the dirt and have him block 40 plays a game. Like, that's not who Harold is. But if you're going to ask him, 10 dozen times a game to go and have to cut somebody off or pull on counter or lead block, like, Harold will stick his nose in there and he'll be physical and he'll give it everything he can. And I think he's a much better blocker than he gets credit for.
Well, what's interesting about that too is you talk about you guys being a 12 personnel team. The Browns are a very heavy 12 personnel team in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So I'm envisioning already a ton of opportunities for him, even in his first year, just to get out there and start doing some of this stuff and blocking and doing these different things. And along those lines, I think about when David Njoku came into this league with the Browns. He wasn't somebody that was really known for blocking. He didn't even want to block. There were some tiffs there that came up when Kevin Stefanski came here where they didn't really get along because of what they were asking him to do. But now he, I think, is one of the best blocking tight ends in football because he's really embraced it. What do you think Harold can learn from somebody like David Njoku, who's obviously done it at a high level and is a Pro Bowler as of a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think that's a great landing spot for Harold. He needed to go somewhere that had a veteran tight end that can kind of show him the ropes and show him how to be a pro and show him, hey, we show up at this time, we do this stuff. It's not just show up, do your work, and go. We got do your extra work. But I think he's going to be able to learn a lot because they are very similar. Now except the fact that Njoku is about a couple inches taller and a few more pounds than him, but they play kind of the same game. And so I think that's going to be very helpful to Harold to have someone like that that's going to be able to help him. And I think the Browns are a perfect fit. So I haven't said this to you, but Browns are my favorite team. My family's from Cleveland. I'm a Browns fan. I've been a Cleveland fan my whole life. I'm following the Cavs in the playoffs right now, and obviously the Guardians. But and secondly, being close to Bowling Green every Sunday, they're on the Browns are one of our local channels. So I got to watch Brown games every Sunday. So I'm super excited to be able to watch Harold every Sunday and do all this stuff. So being a Browns fan and following what they do, you want to end up on a team that's going to use his skill set. There's plenty of scouts that told me in this process, like, I don't think Harold's the tight end for us, and that's fine. But someone's going to utilize him and utilize his strengths and get a really, really good player that can do a lot of damaging things for an offense.
Well, if you consider yourself a Browns fan, I'm sure it's easy with the color scheme being similar, and now you have Harold to root for, so that obviously helps too.
Yeah.
On a personal level for you, just what was it like? How special was it, I guess, for you as an alum of the program, having coached someone to the next level that like Harold has become, and watch him go through this draft process, and even watched him as a former Bowling Green tight end who had a very, very illustrious career of your own, break some of your records and do some of these things that have kind of set a new precedent for the program.
I couldn't be more proud of him. I mean, he's hasn't always been the easiest. There's certainly, like every college kid has some things he needs to, had needed to grow up with since from his freshman year to now, but really proud of, the hard work he's put in and everything he's done to get to this point. Making this program proud, putting Bowling Green on the map, all these awards, All-American, just special to be a part of, special to coach somebody that broke all my records that I had at Bowling Green. It wasn't a lot of them, but I was proud of them. They stood for 10, 11 years. So, we had a good run, but it was really cool to be a part of. And last Friday night is a night I'll never forget. My wife and I were watching the draft, and Harold's the first player I've coached personally that's made the NFL, that I've been the position coach, not like an assistant or analyst or something. So to hear his name called and really be following, because I knew going in the draft there was, 4 or 5 teams that he had been talking to a lot, and with Cleveland being one of them. So every time they kind of popped up, I rose up in my chair and was waiting for his name to get called. And when it was Cleveland, I just, again, being a Browns fan, I was like, no way. And then to hear that name called, I mean, I shot out of my seat. Felt like I was getting drafted in a sense. And, it's a perfect fit for him. And I couldn't be more excited, more proud of what he's done for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine it sort of feels like when, I don't know if you have kids, I have a toddler at home.
Yeah, 2 little boys.
But like when your kids do something and you're like, man, it feels like you feel happy for them, even if they out succeed you in a way. So that's kind of cool. I guess you talked about the moment in the Penn State game, the first couple plays. Is there another Harold Fannin moment that's like one of your favorites from his time in college? I mean, there's so many good ones. The Texas A&M game, I'm sure, stands out. But what's another one that maybe comes to mind for you?
Yeah, those 2 games, I say we're obviously, going into this season, we made it a big point with Harold, like, we're not going to talk about the NFL. We knew it was a looming factor. We knew before the year this is probably the decision he was going to make, and but we just wanted him to focus on football, not worry about the NFL. And the year prior, we played Michigan and Georgia Tech. Those were our two big games, and the first series against Michigan, he rolls his ankle and misses the rest of the game. And then he misses 2 weeks later. He's still out for the Georgia Tech game. So he didn't go against those two, like, bigger schools. So we knew going in this year, like, these two were going to be highlighted on every scout's, film watch is how's he going to do against bigger competition. So that to see him come out in that first play and then the second play and then obviously the rest of that game, that was exciting. You mentioned the Texas A&M. The long touchdown he had was incredible. The way he's juking back and forth. There was a lot. 17 catches in the bowl game was pretty special. He had a handoff against Akron that he took to the house. I mean, it was one thing after another. He leaped a couple guys. I mean, it seemed like every game he's making a highlight that you look back now and it's just like, man. What a special player. I don't care what level he's at, like whether G5, like he did it against all the teams, and he's just special to be a part of.
I'll get you out of here with this, Alex. And again, I'm really grateful for your time, man. What has it been like? There's a lot of cross here with Cleveland, Ohio State, obviously a lot of love for Eddie George being the Ohio State legend that he is. What's it been like working with him these first few months at Bowling Green, and how excited are you for what's to come with the program? Yeah,
been pretty surreal. So my dad from Cleveland went to Ohio State, so I was raised a Buckeye. And,
there you go.
Still kind of walk through the halls. And not first and foremost, he could go out tomorrow and rush for 100 yards in the NFL. I mean, he is like 6'3", 240, just raw. I imagine this is what Derrick Henry looks like. He looks like he's in playing shape right now. But
that's crazy.
He's been great. He's really great with the players. He does a great job building the culture and kind of, we had a great culture before and he's just kind of tweaking and putting in, his own stuff in it. But, he's a winner. He's won in his short time here, obviously in his playing days. He's got a really great staff that he's brought with him. I'm very optimistic on what we're going to be able to do here. And, I think he's going to be a great leader, great person in the community and lead us to a lot of wins and hopefully some championships here soon.
Well, here's hoping that with Eddie George in tow, this is just the beginning of sending guys to the NFL for both you and the program, and that we see many more Bowling Green Falcons going on and doing great things at the NFL level, man. But I can't thank you enough for giving us some time. I thought this was awesome, enlightening most of all, to just learn about the player and the person that is Harold Fannin. And I can tell you, I think Browns fans are going to be very excited after hearing you talk about him and what he brings to the table and in terms of what he can do at the next level. So
yeah, I promise you will. He's going to be a special player, and he's going to do a lot of good things this year and in his future. So I really appreciate you having me. It's always great to talk about Harold in our program. And if you want to do it again, let me know.
Definitely will. We're going to pause again. I'll react to everything Alex had to say, how excited we are about Harold Fannin, coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. If you aren't more excited after talking to Alex Bayer about Harold Fannin Jr. than you already were, then you must not have a pulse. I mean, that was great stuff from him. I like what he had to say about him as a blocker, because that has been, as we know, one of the biggest knocks on Fannin throughout this pre-draft process is just the fact that people don't know if he can do that at the next level. And part of that, which Alex alluded to, is just the size thing, right? Like, he's not your prototypical tight end in terms of like build. He's not 6'5", he's not 260, 250. Like he's lighter and he's going to have to sort of, I'm sure, listen, he's going to have opportunities to bulk up and he's going to have opportunities to improve himself in terms of his size. And that's part of, like, when you think about, Kevin Stefanski always uses the phrase unfinished product. And that when it comes to drafting guys and guys that they're just sort of bringing in here. And that's very much the case for somebody like Fannin, who, yes, he has room to grow. All these prospects have room to grow. But one of the biggest things when you talk about unfinished products is when you get to the NFL and you want a guy to be like a certain size, obviously height is height. You can't control that. But if you want him to add some muscle so he's a little bit bulkier and he can hold up a little bit more, like you can get with a trainer who's going to have specialized plans for guys that they want to sort of get them to a certain point. And so I think like understanding that is important. And so he can improve in certain areas. I also think what he said about David Njoku being the Browns being a perfect spot for him because he has this ability to learn from somebody who's done it at a high level and done the blocking thing, mind you, at a high level. I don't think it's going to be as big of a concern as some let on. He was enlightening in that he shared there were some teams that said, like, I don't think he's the tight end for us, but he knew there was certainly teams that he was going to be a fit for, and Cleveland was one of them. And I do agree that he fits this perfectly. The fact that he's 20, has room to develop and grow. I mean, it is going to be it's going to be fun to watch him develop into what I think will be one of the premier tight ends in the sport here in Cleveland, in a system that will highlight him, because that's what's going to happen. And it almost will be a passing of the baton type situation here. Like, I am envisioning at some point here, you get David Njoku, listen, he's in the last year of his contract anyway. This theoretically could be his last year. They might try to extend him, but this theoretically could be his last year. And so he paves the way for somebody like Harold Fannin to sort of take that baton and become the focal point from a tight end standpoint in this offense moving forward, especially if this regime is back next year. Like, he is going to be highlighted and so much with this team and with this offense. We're going to see him do a lot in year one, but man, like, there's a chance he really turns into something even bigger and better down the line here. So I'm not as worried about the blocking thing as others. That's something that can be developed, I believe, to a degree. I mean, like, yeah, the size of a player helps, but it's not the end all be all. A lot of it is technique related. And so he's going to get a chance to learn those things. I like that Alex mentioned, he was our best blocker when it comes to when we did ask him to do certain things, and he could pull and do certain and recreate certain scenarios we needed him to. Like that's what you're looking for in a player, is somebody who can be versatile, somebody who can do a lot of different things. And I can understand why there was an appeal there for the Browns to somebody who did so many different things in this offense, whether it was playing in the receiver spot, playing the tight end spot, blocking, etc. He was, to Alex's point, like, he was the best player on the field in some of these games, by the way, against like better quality opponents. In Penn State game, like, he was tearing it up against top tier teams in college football. And that's for a reason, because he's that talented. And so, listen, if you weren't, like I said, if you're not excited about Harold Fannin, you should be now after hearing Alex Bayer talk about him. And that's a special, special kid. He's part of this revamped offense that I, for one, am excited to see what it all kind of looks like. Tight end is such a focal point in Kevin Stefanski's offense, as we know. Like, you have the two running backs coming in, new quarterback situation. And here's the thing, too. If Joe Flacco wins the starting job, and again, this is just an assumption at this point, but if Joe Flacco wins the starting job, you're talking about a guy who could feast. I mean, think about David Njoku in his Pro Bowl season. The majority of his numbers came when Joe Flacco was starting under center. So the ability to find the open guy and utilize the tight end, that is something that could really take off for him. Like, Harold Fannin Jr. could take off if Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season, and he's getting a lot of reps out there. I mean, that is a connection that certainly could develop pretty quickly, and he could start putting up some numbers pretty early on in his career, alongside, David Njoku doing something similar as well. So I'm fascinated to see what it looks like. This offense in general. I know wide receiver is still a need for them, but you have to be happy, which is why I've said I liked their draft strategy as a whole. The Dylan Gabriel pick still perplexing, but aside from that, I like their draft strategy as a whole, because you added a lot of weapons between the two running backs you got. You added Harold Fannin, and you set yourself up to recreate this offense in a new way, with new faces, new players, new talent. And I'm really excited about covering it, as I'm sure you are very excited about watching it play out here in the months and season ahead. So, awesome conversation. Alex was great. I do hope down the line we get a chance to talk to him again, because he was super enlightening. And I hope you enjoyed that one, Browns fans, because you got yourself a good one when it comes to this brand new tight end who is now a member of the Cleveland Browns. So, another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me, as always, to talk about your favorite football team. And we'll have plenty more to come in the weeks ahead as we continue dissecting this draft class as we look ahead to rookie minicamp at the end of next week, what we can expect, the quarterback situation, of course, Shedeur Sanders. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting, or you can keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen every day. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See ya.